Welcome back to Token Intelligence. John, I have been thinking a lot
You
about...
almost said the name of our other show, I think.
I almost did. Our previous show.
Yeah.
Well, it was 5 years.
It was
so
5 years.
I said that many times,
Yeah,
hundreds
sorry.
of times. I've been thinking a lot about hype around AI employees.
Yep.
And I saw a post on X that I think exemplifies this really well. And it's from the founder of Sentry, David Cramer, who's a really interesting guy and who has great thoughts on a lot of different things. So I'll just read this. I'll just read this. He's quoting another tweet that says, nobody's running 20 agents overnight and building stuff for actual users. So David Cramer comments on this and says, everyone is slowly coming to this realization, and I assure you, no one is running multitudes of agents overnight. No one that is doing anything of substance, at least. There are people pretending to be scientists or fully caught up in their drug-infused AI overdose that think their slop machines are changing the world. They're not, though, and they're just wasting a bunch of money and compute to create a lot of lines of code that will just get thrown away. The state of the art is still, can we even one-shot a production quality patch that we won't regret later? And it's rarer than you'd expect based on discourse. So this is interesting because I think the news cycle around, layoffs especially, so there was a huge layoff at Block, which is a big financial company, that does Square and Cash App and other financial services. They laid off thousands of employees, and that's been in the news cycle a bunch, right? And so one of the headlines consistently is, AI is replacing these employees. Yeah. And so then in the software world, like David Cramer said, you have people who are saying, I'm running 20 agents overnight to, accomplish all of this work. And I have seen multiple posts like this where people say, okay, you're building something, but that's not actually a legitimate cycle in which production level work or real, user-facing products are being generated that way.
Right.
And you came to mind every time I read these posts, you come to mind because you have tried to create and have created AI employees, or an autonomous fleet of agents for your business. And I wanted to ask you whether you think David Cramer is correct.
I think he's mostly right. Because I wouldn't say it's been hundreds, but we've done dozens of internal app experiments of, okay, what if we could automate this thing?
Yep.
We do a lot of data engineering. So a bunch of reps are all right, data engineering. And all of them have essentially stayed internal. We don't have any of these autonomous agents working on client projects.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So what do they do? So give me an example. Describe one of your autonomous AI employees.
So,
do you even call it that internally? Or did you call it that and you don't call it that anymore?
So I think there's three different levels here. One is what works at home personally for people. One, what works at work personally for people. Two, and then three, what works with a team at work. So it's personal me, for fun at home. Personal me at work, productivity, and then layer on some security and some pieces there. And then what works with a team at work.
Yep. Let's give examples of each of those and I'll just frame it in terms of tooling.
Yeah.
So what works for me at home, there are three things that come to mind. So on the technically advanced end of the spectrum, you have OpenClaw.
Right.
So you run it on a Mac Mini.
Yep.
You give it access to your text messages, your email, your calendar, everything, and it becomes, a personal assistant, right? And can do all these things for you. Mm-hmm. And people who go crazy, will have it trade on Poly Market and give it their credit card.
Yeah.
Zoe Computer, I would say, is sort of middle ground.
Okay.
So it's AI running in a secure cloud computer. So you can kind of think about it as OpenClaw with the guardrails that you would want, right?
Right.
So it's running AI, but it's in a completely secure environment. I mean, you can give it access to certain things, but it's not nearly as, sort of on the risk end of the spectrum as something like OpenClaw. And because it's an actual computer, you can have host files on it and do all sorts of things, right? So way more powerful to actually have a computer. And then there's this other tool that's a consumer, like a full consumer product, not necessarily like prosumer, like a Zoe or a OpenClaw, that's called Poke, and they don't even have an interface.
Okay.
You just use iMessage, Telegram, whatever. You just use a messaging service.
Right.
And that's the only interface. And it will just do things for you. So you just text this agent all day.
Nice.
And it can do all these different things. Like, you can connect stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's sort of the same idea, right? So that's personal.
Yep.
Using things individually at work is on the advanced technical end of the spectrum. You're using Claude Code to like generate code or do a project or whatever.
Right.
And then you have something like Claude Desktop or GPT, where you can generate artifacts, you can let it read physical files, you can upload things, you can give it access to Google Drive and it can help you with a spreadsheet, right? And so that's just using it for productivity, right? And then at work on a team. So this is an area where I don't think a lot of people outside of those who are working, in AI every day understand what the tool set even is. So how do you even think about this? Because I think most people are familiar with, I use AI personally at work.
Right. So, I think it would be helpful just to go personally. So personally, I've played around a fair amount with and been able to do some cool things with OpenClaw, Obsidian, which is a note app similar to Notion, and GPT-5.4, now GPT-5.5. Like, it's really cool. And that is something that, this is silly, but the most productive, like enjoyable thing that it does is on a schedule multiple times a day, it filters out advertisements from my personal email. That's what it does. And it's great.
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome. And
I have a lot of thoughts on
and
that.
Over like
a
a
feature,
month.
Yeah.
And over like a month.
Sure.
Like, it's several hours of savings. And no email provider that gets revenue from ads will ever build that in. So it's a legitimate long-term use case, unless the model changes for email, right? So, that is the like single most useful thing.
That's a whole
silly.
episode that we should discuss. But
Anyways, and then there's there's plenty of other like small things, but the use case and like to drill into like what's actually happening there, it's like a really highly refined, lots of iterations prompt that's run on a schedule multiple times a day, which is really useful. And I slightly modify it over time. So like if I know, because there's general like it's like decent at like separating ads versus not, but it's not perfect. So I've gotten better at working with it. So I'll tell it like, hey, I'm working with my buddy Blake on a thing. Like, just don't like make sure that Blake's emails don't get like lost.
Yeah.
And like you can proactively tell it, and then it's just like little things like that where it's like it's not gonna know if that's spam or not. Like it might,
sure.
Or I signed up for this new service. Like I know that like it might look like spam, but I'm expecting that it's gonna email me.
Right.
Or I like actually
I do want these updates on the
or like
product
a blog
newsletter or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I think the important piece there is the get it like 90% and then iterate with it over time.
Yep.
And that's like true for anything. And then the next important piece is, what can I do personally that could happen every day that would be super valuable? And it just happens. All right. So that's then work, like a couple of things. Yeah. One, you have to layer on security. Two, for us, like kind of client preference. Which we've talked about before, as far as some people really want to use this model versus the other. But I think, but the motion is similar. You're just, like you said, you're just making spreadsheets or like whatever.
You're leveraging AI to perform activities that you performed before, but you're doing them faster, more comprehensively, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, faster and slightly worse, right? Um, but sometimes that's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
still, yeah, you're just augmenting your existing workflow.
Yeah. So the Teams thing I think is the most interesting because I think it's the part people have the least figured out. So for me, like the way I'm thinking about Teams is you have to move the work into a space the team already like uses, which so far is chat, which practically means Slack or Microsoft Teams,
Yes.
depending on your organization.
Yep.
So you have to move the work there, especially if you're going to get non-technical people involved. They're not going to log into another thing like if maybe, and especially if they're not using like AI tools like much for productivity, you have to get into the chat interface.
Right. Because, yeah, that's an adoption.
Yeah. So there's that. But then there's the like, how do you use it in public? Because
In public within a company.
within a company. Yeah. How do you use it in public within a company? And the answer is channels or groups.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only way to show people in a like really low risk, I don't know, like a really easy way to get it to do something. Because people either don't know that it can do things or they like feel like they don't know how or they're nervous or whatever.
Interesting.
Especially non-technical people, which I don't have that many in my organization, non-technical people.
Right.
But that to me, I think at least for now is the right play. And natively in Claude, like chats between other people in group chat like doesn't even really exist. And it kind of exists in ChatGPT, but like kind of.
Yep.
I've done a couple. I don't know if you've ever done one. You can do group chats now with humans and AI and GPT, but at work, I don't think too many people use it for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, that is really interesting because you're framing this in part as an adoption problem.
Right.
So even if we assume that you could run 20 agents overnight and have, these digital employees like doing things on your behalf,
right.
Getting a company to adopt that is actually hard.
Well, yeah, it is, but it's not. But the reason the adoption problem is hard is the like value. Like I don't know what it can do reliably.
Okay,
They
so
can theoretically know, like, I hear it can connect to things and do neat things, but like, what can it actually do?
Right, right. Would you describe that as a blank page problem?
No, it's not like completely blank, but it's like there's like enough filled in. It's like a Mad Lib problem, and you have like a group of people that's like kind of good at Mad Lib and a group that's kind of bad at Mad Lib. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So, where's the point of diminishing return that you have found, right? So, and I'll frame this as a theoretical use case.
Right.
You probably have already tried to implement this. Okay. You try to build a data analyst agent for a company.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a digital employee, autonomous agent, whatever term you want to use. But it is a machine that performs the job of what a typical analyst would do. Right. And so this can show up in many forms. Just a couple that, come to mind out of the gate are you can have it like run a report on a schedule, right? So I can get my weekly sales report, right?
Right.
You can ask it ad hoc questions, right? So, website traffic looks like it's down this week. What are the potential reasons that it's down? Like, what are the variables that changed and impacted the delta the most? You could have it perform, analyses like forecasting or other things like that, right?
Yep.
Is that, again, based on sort of what David Cramer said in the post, people are saying this is, and like the layoff news and all that sort of stuff, right? What do you think, in your experience, is the actual state of that? Yeah. Is there huge adoption? Is that providing value? Is it replacing a data analyst as an employee?
Yeah. So I think two interesting things. One, on the data analyst thing, and we were talking about this earlier. A lot of the experimentation we've done has been internal and like, hey, I wonder if we can make a data analyst. And it's like, does anyone have time to work on this? No. So like we'll have like I think I did a demo of this like for a group that we're part of. So like we'll go find the craziest thing. Like there's these 0 employee companies that like there's 2 or 3 of them out there. They're like, we're a 0 employee company all run by AI. I was like, fine, we'll try that. And like give it an objective, like, hey, we want this cool AI data analyst, and then give it like a bunch of tokens and be like, hey, build the thing. So I think that's
done this.
Yeah, we've done this. Yeah.
Yep.
One extreme vector, and it like is exactly what you would expect. Well, I don't know what you would expect. Like it kind of works. Like it's like it like you learn some cool things. You're like, oh, that's interesting. I did that, and then like you start it up, and like of course it doesn't work right the first time, and then like and then like I couldn't tell you like the exact like time frame between that and like hardening to make it like something really good,
right.
or if I would just want to start over because we haven't like quite done that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you 2 questions. 2 questions come to mind. In the current state with what you've tried, is the juice worth the squeeze?
On which piece?
On, running a let's say zero employee data team or something.
Yeah.
Right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Like you're not deploying this to all of your clients.
No.
And it sounds like the way that you talk about it is you say it kind of works, which means that you're running it internally, but you're not, doing this in production on behalf of a client.
Here's how I think about it. And this is a shortcoming of like the design of a lot of the tools.
Okay.
Don't think it's a fundamental model problem. And I had a chance to like describe this to like somebody on my team recently. So helpful for me to frame it. I was like, all right, think about like all the tokens you spend in a week. What do you do with them? Like let's categorize it. Writing code. All right, what percentage of the time? Research. What percentage of the time? Planning. What percentage of the time? QA and quality. What percentage of the time? I think that is one of the current fundamental problems, is the misallocation, especially for technical people, of way too high budget for writing code, way too low budget for planning, way too low budget for research, way too low budget for quality.
Interesting.
So if you like inverted that and you're like, hey, token maxer, you have a token budget that's unlimited, but every day or every week, here's your breakdown. You need to spend X amount of your budget on research, X amount on planning, X amount on quality, and the remainder you can spend on coding.
Interesting.
I think that would fundamentally change a lot of like how people like use.
Yeah.
And I think the results would be better.
I guess what I'm getting at is it sounds like you have not reached a point where you're super excited about these autonomous digital data analysts suddenly providing some unbelievable amount of value based on your implementations of them, but you also view it as a problem that will be solved in the near future.
I think a lot of the tooling and everything that's being pushed right now is very developer centric. And in the real world, like what we've developed over time is all these different roles like ops, DevOps, security, QA at different points. I feel like QA comes and goes as far as like fads.
Yep.
And we're just really lopsided right now. So when I go to use to try out like an autonomous, like orchestrated 0-person company, who made that? QA people, ops people,
right?
Or devs? Devs, of course.
Yeah.
They're not, or database people. They're not.
Right.
They're not data people. They're devs.
Yeah.
And like there's just a bent that's like built into the framework and the software of if I want to emphasize token spend on like and you could absolutely do it, but there's like a pre-bent to building, whereas like you need extra like work and thought to like kind of force it to do like, oh, you need to do more planning, more QA, more research, like, and you can do it because most of these frameworks are fairly flexible. But if you just want out of the box like do something cool, like it's got that dev bent to it, like it's hard to explain any other way. And that would be the case. That would be the case regardless of AI. If there's some like new thing and it's like brand new and devs built it and you don't have the other layers that would be in a commercial organization of quality and ops and all the other things, like I think you'd run into the same problems but AI like exaggerates the problem.
It's super interesting. One of the other things that comes to mind is the challenge around. We talked about the, sort of the blank page problem or the Mad Lib problem as you framed it, which I think is great. But I think the other difficulty is that if you think about a data analyst within a company, let's say you build it, we've seen these things actually be successful where you have a little data agent in Slack and you can, or Microsoft Teams, and you can ask it questions, and it's super helpful.
Yeah.
It's very, what's the daily active user trend for the last 3 months or something, right? And it's just like amazing to get those answers, on demand. But another thing that I've noticed is that, people will say, well, those sorts of things are not necessarily accurate all the time. But I think it's because they are set up even with a semantic layer and really clear definitions that only covers a certain amount of surface area on the data that's, of the data and the questions that can be asked. But because it's an open-ended Mad Libs problem, people can ask questions and the agent will try to answer those questions. But, by default, it tries to answer the questions. And so I think that's another challenge where you do have to, even though agents can, technically reason autonomously, you actually do have to bake the guardrails in to control for the fact that they will try to answer by default, even if they don't have, the underlying context that they need to answer the question. Which is challenging. And I think that's another limitation of, whether it's a coding agent, it will try to build the feature, right? A data analyst, it will try to answer the question. It's actually a lot of work to hard code the guardrails in that keep it from doing things that it shouldn't do. Right?
Yeah. Well, so if we talk about data analyst, I'm very bullish, and I think we're there on the data part, but not on the analyst part.
Yes.
So if you have a really good analyst that basically just needs text to SQL, we're there. It works great. And if they have domain knowledge and understanding of the data, and they just they wouldn't be able to write SQL very fast or maybe at all, and they just have some intuition, that works great today.
But that's that is fundamentally different, because that is augmenting an existing human role. Which is fundamentally different than a zero-person company or an autonomous
even an AI employee. Yep. So let me end on this, because as far as where I think we're going, one, I think autonomous employee skips step. Autonomous zero-person company skips a bunch of steps.
Yes.
The thing that's most interesting to me right now is if you've heard of digital twin, basically working on a digital employee is what people are calling it, but it's who's responsible for the employee. I think the best model right now is one-to-one, and saying all right, I'm gonna be constructing this thing, and all of my, and there's basic framework stuff that is going to be solved, is already being solved by GPT and Anthropic and all of these, and then all the effort goes into the guardrails and the prompting and the baking and the knowledge, so the interactions with it are easy.
Yes.
That to me is the next step. And if it says something dumb, it's my co is the term a lot of people are using. It's my co, and I'm responsible for fixing it. That to me is the most compelling model.
Interesting.
Right now.
Yeah.
And it has permission to do some things on my behalf. I have to prove important things. That is most interesting to me right now.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to summarize this.
All right.
We're not there yet. But we are getting there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
All right. AI employees.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet?
Having young kids, that's a common question.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, thanks for joining the Token Intelligence Show, and we'll catch you on the next one.